All right, we're back here with my friend and mentor John Fooshee is joining us here today. John is actually, I've worked with John for a little while now, doing some coaching and some cogitating and thinking and working through a number of different things and trying to figure some things out. And John's been a huge help. John is the founder and leader of a coaching effort called People Launching. And with all of that said, John, please introduce yourself and let's get into it.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. It's a delight to do this. One of the things I've enjoyed with you is asking you a lot of questions. I get the opportunity to do that today. I started People Launching about 10 years ago. It's basically leadership coaching. I help leaders who feel stuck discover where they are, what they're called to do, find some joy back in leading, and if it's a startup, we help them out with that. So that's what People Launching is. It's been a pleasure to be coming on here with you today, and I've been listening to all of your episodes, except for the last one that dropped yesterday, I believe, and just a delight to see this take off, such a critical need. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks, John. And I think the efforts are actually a little bit intertwined and integrated in some ways, especially the people that we're speaking to and the people that we're looking to reach. I'm really happy to maybe kind of join forces with you here and get more of the message out there. So
yeah,
thanks for that introduction. Go ahead and tell me a little, what's your backstory? I don't even know a lot of this, so this is going to be very interesting to me too.
Yeah.
Can you go back to your early professional days and your schooling and so forth and just kind of give us a quick summary of what happened and how you ended up here and maybe where you're going from here moving forward?
Sure. I grew up in Texas. I'm a native Texan and have a Texocentric view of the world, as if everything outside of Texas is our vacation land that God gave to us. I'm being a little silly there. Actually, I grew up in Dallas area. I went to the University of Texas at Austin and then transferred to school in East Tennessee. Met my wife, lived in East Tennessee for 25 years, and then moved to the Raleigh-Durham area where both of us are now, 10 years ago. And my path was mostly sales and pastoral work, both, and startups work, overlapping, starting up between sales, starting new territories, going with new product lines, those kind of things, and then also starting ministries or churches or nonprofits. And so when I was trained as a coach back almost 20 years ago, I loved that idea of just listening to people, where they're coming from, stories, asking a lot of questions to help them get clarity on where they are and where they're going, to help them move past what they've rehearsed in their mind or what's causing them to get stuck, to open up new ideas and then encouraging them to go in the direction they're supposed to go. So I actually, from 2008 to about 2015, coached a lot of individual leaders, some business leaders, nobody in the military that I could think of, actually, Matt. It's funny. We'll talk about your military background a little bit. But then also a lot of nonprofits and churches. Didn't realize it when I started this on my day off in 2015. The phone rang off the hook because it had been a few hundred people or something like that I had coached, and that took off. I've been doing this for 10 years. Most of what we do now is true coaching. And about a third of mine are guys, mostly men, in their 40s and 50s that are looking for a career pivot or to do something that's a little bit more in line with what they really love to do or could do the remaining part of their career. We also do a lot of leader burnout, sabbaticals, those kind of things, both for business leaders and people in ministry as well. So that's a little bit of background on us. I've been married for 32 years, got 4 kids and a daughter-in-law. Love my family.
Awesome. Thanks. And just a quick pitch, it's launching.com, correct? Or is it peoplelaunching.org?
No, .com.
Peoplelaunching.com. John's got his webpage there. You can go ahead and contact him, set up a time to meet and to find out whether John and his team might be a good fit for you. I know that John has been a great fit for me. And we'll talk about coaching here for just a second, if you don't mind, John. I have had coaches, I guess, here and there over the years, and a little bit skeptical of the whole coaching moniker and the traditional approach to so-called coaching. And I think around January of this year, earlier this year, we're friends outside of, although not as closely acquainted as we are now. Our spouses actually worked together in some capacity over the past few years. And so we knew each other, and we certainly knew of you and so forth. But I finally broke down and I guess maybe swallowed my pride a little bit. I said, I got these things that I want to do, got all of this stuff rattling around in my head. I need somebody to bounce ideas off of and to sort through and to prioritize what's essential and what is non-essential, what I can actually do to move the ball forward and to actually get some of these things done, primarily some of the things we're really going to be talking about today. And so you graciously agreed to meet with me and to set up some times for us to talk. And it's been immensely beneficial. And I'm certainly grateful for all the assistance. And I think the proof is in the pudding. For me, at least, what I've been able to clarify and to accomplish after just getting a lot of this out of my head and on the table in front of another person who is trained in kind of helping people sort through these things and to prioritize and to get clarity around themselves and their own goals. So that's been very beneficial. So we don't poo-poo coaching anymore. Coaching is
good. There's two different types of coaches. There's the coach, let's say football, that's the lineman coach that's just hit the guy that tells you what to do.
Yeah.
That's really not what I do. I ask like a Tony Dungy to Peyton Manning or a Phil Jackson to Michael Jordan. Yeah. What do you see? I've got highly intelligent people that are just looking at what are the possibilities, and we all do not have enough people to listen to us. And if you have enough dedicated time. So what I'd love to do is do exactly that here, is ask you a lot of questions, because I really feel like your background and your story has everything to do with what Graybeard's all about. I think it's fascinating. And so I appreciate the opportunity to come on, but what I'd love to do is ask you questions.
Yeah. Yes, that'd be great. And just in case anybody's wondering, this is not a surprise to me. We actually set this up this way.
We did set it up. Yes, we did.
So we could share a little bit about what's going on with Matt Hempel and Graybeard Radio and all the rest of it. So anyways, let's go, John. Sounds good.
All right, here we go. All right, so you're an interesting guy. Let's just be really clear. You're a really interesting guy. I do remember you grew up in Cape Cod in North Dakota. You've flown all over the world in different types of aircraft. You've been in the Navy. You've lived in D.C. You've been in tech, a lot of entrepreneurship, a lot of management consulting. You're married to a very interesting woman and have two great daughters. So there's been a lot in your life. I would really curious what your resume looked like and what common theme you would tell somebody.
Oh boy.
But one of the great things about it is not only have you flown around the world, you've really seen all different types of worlds. And I'm just curious, starting out, you really do have a varied background. What has being in so many different places, so many different stages of life, so many different worlds teach you about adapting without losing yourself?
Yeah, I would say just getting back to at least part of the question that you just asked, the one theme is it seems like change and change of direction is almost a constant theme throughout everything that I've been through, sometimes by choice and other times by circumstance. Didn't have a whole lot of choice about a change in direction, a change in career, a change in circumstance. So yeah, I remember being very motivated to move out of the place I lived in when I was a teenager. I lived in a rather restricted, coercive, control type of Christian community up on Cape Cod that was, even at a young age, I think I could see that it was really quite dysfunctional and not a good place for me to be. Probably not a good place for a lot of folks that were there to be. But all that aside, that was a primary motivator for me to launch out and to start my career, and needed to figure out what I was going to do. My folks didn't have a lot of money. we were always provided for, and I love my folks dearly. My dad's passed away now. My mom lives down the street and is still driving her little Toyota Corolla. God bless her. She's a wonderful presence in our lives here in North Carolina. But I needed to get out, and I applied to the Naval Academy. I applied to several different colleges. I also applied for a Navy ROTC scholarship. We didn't have any money. We didn't have any way to make any of that happen. Ended up going to boot camp because I didn't get into the ROTC program. I got waitlisted. So I ended up going to boot camp, Navy boot camp. I was going to be a cryptologic technician in the summer of 19.
What is a cryptologic technician?
This was back during the Cold War, and we were spying on the Soviets, and they were spying on us, and people were sitting around in little dark rooms over radios and equipment in dark rooms in Turkey along the border, the Iron Curtain there. And, I was going to be a super spy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, cool.
It sounded cool.
Oh, it sounds awesome. Yeah.
If I was going to go do this enlisted thing in the Navy because I didn't get the officer scholarship, I was going to go ahead and make the best of it. So I decided to go ahead and go into boot camp in the summer of 1982 in Orlando, of all places.
Oh, boy.
Tell me how bright that was. Not very bright. Yeah. It was miserable. It was hot, and it was boot camp. But we ended up finding out at the end of that, right before graduation, is that I had been moved up the wait list to actually receive a ROTC scholarship. The people there, the company commander that we had pulled me aside and said, "Hey, if you want to go do this, you can actually take this scholarship and you go to college." So they shipped me off to Worcester, Massachusetts. I went to Holy Cross. So that was the first big twist in all of the well-laid plans. That was the first big change of direction. It was after being in this highly coercive, very sheltered environment. I was really on my own in a college environment, having to deal with all kinds of adult type of stuff. And that was interesting, an interesting experience. I managed not to flunk out. I think I was somewhere in the bottom 10 or 15% of my class out of, we have 500 people in our class, maybe something, it was 2,000 kids all together at Holy Cross. I don't remember, whatever it was, but I made it through.
That's impressive.
It was the spring of 1986, and Reagan was building up the military to the 600 ship military. I happened to be able to fog a mirror, and I had 20/20 eyesight. And they said, "You're good enough to be a pilot." I'm like, "Sounds good. I'll go be a pilot."
Cool.
Like, they get to wear the flight suits. They probably get more girls than the other guys do. I was like, "Yeah, this is going to be good."
Absolutely. Yes.
That's how what my brain decision making process was like at that point.
Now, what did you initially fly? Was it helicopters or?
Yes. So after initial flight training, everybody gets sorted out into their different communities and into their different specific aircraft platforms that they fly. I ended up flying the SH-3 helicopter. It's the kind of the big ones that are deployed on board the aircraft carriers. If you look at the old films of the helicopters picking up the astronauts out of the water, those were SH-3s.
Okay.
And that says something about the age of that airframe. I was in my early 20s, and most of the aircraft I was flying at the time, those helicopters were older than I was.
Okay. All right.
Ancient technology at this point. But anyways, I forgot where I was going with all of this, but you were talking about themes and again, just some significant changes along the way and some changes of direction. And I think it kind of builds character after a while. Whether you're forced to adapt, or whether you are willingly take a different direction, it really builds character. It builds you into the person that you are today after decades. And the one thing that I think about with all of the varied type of background and experience I've had doing different things, it's very much a strength rather than, might have not made for the strongest, but it made for character, I think, when I look back on it.
When you're certainly flying, obviously there's both a lot of technical and adaptive to it. What about flying has shaped how you think? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm sure it did.
It did. And I would say the thing that I and when you're in the middle of it, when you're learning at first, you don't really put it in this kind of a perspective. But I think what flying gave me is a level of confidence after you go through the training and after you have a certain number of hours under your belt and after you pass your different check rides and you move up the progression of being a helicopter aircraft commander, for instance. You're able to basically sign for a multi-million-dollar machine as a 5-year-old young man.
Yeah.
And it happens all the time in the Navy or in any of the services. Young people, men and women both, are being entrusted with enormous responsibility, people's lives, the value of the equipment that we operate, that type of thing. It's absolutely incredible if you think about it. So that was definitely a realization that came over me. And after a while, you really, as an operator of this machine and an executor of the mission that you're trained to do, whatever it was, anti-submarine warfare, search and rescue, logistics, transport, personnel transport, no matter what it was, you get really good at it. It becomes very second nature, and it instills second nature without being complacent about it. I think that's very important, because you can never be complacent if you're operating in an aircraft and you're responsible for everything. But this level of confidence that you're like, yeah, I can do this. It's something that I never, ever expected I would have been able to do in my wildest dreams as a younger man. And even now, as I go out and fly, I get a great deal of, it's really a left brain, right brain thing. It's not I guess it's the right brain as the interpersonal and the touchy-feely stuff and the more emotional stuff. And the left brain is very much an operational and procedural part of how we think and how we operate. And settling into that left brain level of activity where you're good at it and you understand what's going on, you get a great deal of satisfaction out of that. As a man, I do. I don't know if it's the same level of left brain, right brain separation that women experience, professional women, and whatever it is they happen to be doing, or if they get more satisfaction out of the sort of the other types of engagement and activity with other people and the interaction and the support and the sharing and the communion of all of that. So I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. So you also, after being a pilot for a while, you had a detour that actually, I think if you described before, became essential preparation for you. Tell us a little bit about what detour ended up coming up in your life.
Yeah. So after I got out of the Navy, and it was really a reduction in force, I got caught up in the Reagan buildup in the mid 80s and the Clinton drawdown in the late 90s, and as many of us did. So it was a matter of figuring out what I wanted to do. I became enamored with the idea of becoming a partner, a big shot at a consulting firm. I was really into this whole management consulting. I think it was in the form it takes today. The management consulting world was forming at the time in the late 90s. It was a little less formed maybe than it is today. And there were the big groups, the Boston Consulting Group and McKinsey and Company. And then there was PricewaterhouseCoopers and Coopers and Lybrand became PricewaterhouseCoopers and several others. I thought that was the world I was going to go into, and I was going to be a big shot and make a ton of money and be a management consultant. So I decided that's what I wanted to do. I ended up getting hired by KPMG Consulting and working in the Washington, D.C. area, primarily for federal government clients. I worked for the Department of Defense. It was called the Department of Defense at the time, folks. The Department of Homeland Security after it was formed, and the Department of the Army, and just some other various government. Department of State did a lot of work for Department of State. Very interesting work. I learned a ton about consulting and what it actually meant and what consulting offered in terms of creating value and delivering value for customers and clients. I had some very good mentors and teachers about how to run that business and how to deliver value to clients and how to work with the teams and so forth. So it was really good. I ended up I was married at the time, ended up getting divorced. And then a couple of years later, I met my wife, Aisha, who was a Marine Corps officer, an active duty Marine Corps officer in the Washington, D.C. area at the time. And we pretty quickly figured we were going to be a thing and take it all the way, so to speak. We ended up getting married. She, of course, as an active duty Marine Corps officer, we decided we wanted to have her complete her 20 years to secure her retirement and all the benefits that go along with that, and that I would essentially forego my career path to make that a reality and to be there and actively in a support role. And as a leader for my family, we were starting a family. And so that's what we decided to do. That meant essentially putting my hard-won career and status up until that point on a back burner. And I did so willingly because, we really worked through what it is we wanted to do as a family. And so that was a change in direction that I did not foresee coming down the road. And just one of the big twists and turns that when I look back, definitely the right decision to make, and ultimately a lot more fulfilling and a lot more fulfilling of a life in terms of being present with my family than if I had stayed and kind of pursued another path, really. So, and again, all of these things really kind of make me into who I am today in a way that I wouldn't change it for the world. I mean, it's kind of what ended up happening where you're really questioning and you're in the middle of something, you're uncertain which direction you're supposed to take, what direction you're being called in. You just, I guess you just kind of make some decisions and step out in faith, and things seem to end up working out in the end. So,
yeah, man, I tell you, I too, for a season, had a significant career with a lot of responsibility, and then have shifted my wife, where kind of our job is more dependent around her. I mean, it's not so much that we're both employed, but she's got that stronger responsibility, and that. Choosing family over career, sometimes we jump into those situations motivated because it's financial, or motivated because we want to see her succeed. But other times we're a little bit like, dang, this is a lot. I didn't think I'd have to step back, or do those kind of things. And I don't know exactly how you would define your mindset that, or what you learned about identity or security in that season. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and security for, I think, most professionals in the West, at least, I think is really wrapped up for many people in their identity. And their identity is really wrapped up in what we do for a living. I mean, it's the first question. Meet somebody at a cocktail party or a networking event or whatever. Hey, John, how are you? What do you do? And most of us have a very well-prepared, short postcard length couple of sentences. I'm a senior manager for KPMG Consulting. We work with federal government clients here in the Washington, D.C. area. And we work on project management in the software development space. Okay. And it's like, you get an immediate, a quick understanding of where that person is. The other thing that I recently observed as well, I was talking about a new friend that just retired from the military, from the Army. After 35 years, he was a colonel, retired as a colonel. And we were having this conversation. And it really occurred, he brought it into stark relief, what it's like to be in the uniform one day and in the aisles at Food Lion at 3 p.m. on a Friday, wandering around in civilian clothes. Nobody knows who he is. He was somebody in the Army. And in the Army, it's even easier because you wear the uniform, you've got all the campaign ribbons and all of the other awards and everything. You have your rank, whatever that happens to be. And many times you'll have whatever community you happen to be in, whether that's, a logistics and supply, or whether you're an aviator, or whether you're, surface warfare, a surface warrior in the Navy. And the same thing, I'm sure, is in the Army and the other services. So you look at somebody that's in a uniform, and you really get an immediate picture. You kind of know pretty much what that guy or gal has done, what they're good at, and kind of how long they've been around. I mean, if you're wearing a colonel's, full bird colonel, that person has been in for a while, and they've got some experience, good enough at what they do to be considered worthy of promotion to that rank. And it's an immediate snapshot picture. And when you step out of that uniform after 35 years of wearing it, is a big loss of identity. And you all of a sudden, you got to explain to people who inquire about it, who you are, what you've done. So, so that whole thing really, all of the twists and turns, working in a corporate office and then going on to, other part-time and patchwork sorts of jobs and things to kind of piece things together while Aisha and I were traveling around to these different outposts and different assignments. Really, and especially in retrospect, I don't know about as much at the time, but now, especially as I think back on it, it was really an exercise in, okay, your identity is really wrapped up and should be more wrapped up in who you are as a person, not necessarily what you do for a living. And I think when people place a disproportionate amount of emphasis and importance, and it's natural for us to, I know it is, and it's the way the world is in the corporate world and in the professional world. What do you do is the primary question, not who you are. Oh, hey, I'm really, I've got a family. It's probably the most important thing to me. And I used to fly airplanes, and now I'm into tech and technology, and I like this and that. And it's a different angle, and it really, I think, explains more about who a person really is than what their job title is and kind of what they do from a professional's perspective. And, this question is especially, and this topic and concept, I think, is especially important for people that you and I work with and talk to, late career, early retirement stage of life. They've been operating at a very high pace for many, many years. They've been the person that is central to operations and to executing and delivering and all of the things in whatever organization they have to be a part of. And all of a sudden, either by choice or by circumstance, it's time for them to step back and to change the role, maybe to retire and redirect their efforts entirely. And it's very difficult for people to, I think people at that stage going through that really can feel very uncertain on one end and maybe even lost on the other end of the spectrum of intensity of that particular sensation of loss of identity. So anyways, I've gone on and on about that. It's a topic that I think about a lot, especially in the work that I do here.
Well, and it has everything to do with what you started here, because a lot of the, as you describe, a lot of us in our 20s, 30s, 40s get good at something. And if we are good at it, like you described with the colonel, we have people coming to us regarding us that way, suddenly that question about identity and security may be assumed, I'm good. But when it really is stripped away and you're asking, who am I? And how do I just walk down the grocery aisle and just be a dude and be comfortable being the dude, and you realize, one of the opportunities, of course, it brings up is, who am I and what do I really want to do? But you really honestly, you don't have to, but it's helpful to answer the who am I before you ask what I want to do, so you have a solid foundation. And I think what you're doing has everything to do with it. So yeah, and I think it's so good.
Yeah.
What about, so you're back flying again? What does the cockpit give you now? And talk a little bit about just, how that relates to Graybeard and as well.
Yeah. So let me start with kind of how I got back into it. And again, a major I wouldn't call it a misdirection, a major change in direction from a career perspective. So a couple of years ago, I had my own company. I had some investors in that company. Frankly, it wasn't going so great. And I basically got terminated from my own company. Maybe not entirely unexpected, but it sucked.
Yeah.
And it kind of leaves you hanging in a way where I just, you feel bad. You didn't want to let people down. You kind of let yourself down, and it's a little humiliating in the whole bit. I guess the biggest question was, okay, now what do I do? Do I really want to go back into the industry? We're in a very specialty niche software and services company that we had, primarily serving federal government customers, but it was in the accessibility space, digital accessibility, making digital assets accessible for people with disabilities, vision or other types of disabilities. Very honorable and worthy sector to kind of be in, I think. But I had been in this sort of world or adjacent to this world of software and services and consulting and all of the things associated with that for years. And I just asked myself, I don't know if I want to continue doing, I'd probably go get a job with another big company, probably doing something similar, and kind of hold on to that for the next 10 years, and then until I didn't want to do it anymore or whatever. So I started looking around. I'm like, okay, what's out there? What could I go do? And then I started asking myself, what do I really want to do? And other people asked me the same thing. I'd sit down with some trusted people and I'd say, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know whether I should take this job. And they're like, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, I have no idea what I want to do. That's why I'm talking to you about it.
Yeah.
And I found that there were like no resources. There was nothing out there in terms of a structure or a path or a framework to help me kind of sort through and make these types of decisions. I'll get back to that in just a second. But what ended up happening is I also had let's call it a health wake-up call at the same time. And so the convergence of these two events really, really got me thinking hard about, okay, let's really, if I'm going to do this thing right, and I'm going to make the next 10 years a really productive, relevant, healthy, connected 10 years, doing something that I love and that really I can have a positive impact on other people in the world, and hopefully make the income that I need to sustain our family and our household. I got to figure something out. And that's how the whole Graybeard project was born. Just real quick, just circling back to the aviation part of it. I had a couple of buddies that I contacted and we'd been in touch back from my Navy days that were flying for, one was flying for a corporate outfit and the other one was flying for a big company, a fractional ownership company called NetJets. And they're like, and this was the early part of COVID. I think it might have been 2022, late in 2022. So like everybody's hiring. You got to go dust your resume off, go get a medical and put your resume in. You got enough hours. Somebody will take you. And somebody did. And I started flying again professionally.
Yeah, that's cool.
It was all new and familiar all at the same time. It was really a kind of a wonderful and weird feeling all at the same time. But yeah, so that's how I got back into it. And that's how I started this whole flying thing again.
Yeah. And so what does it give you now? Having the ability to fly, I would assume, people with a lot of money, or at least access to a lot of money from a company around while you're also starting Graybeard.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would say there's primarily three categories of folks that we fly. We have aircraft owners, and we take really good care of them, wonderful people. We have charter people that organize and buy charters, and those are wealthy folks, but also we have some corporate business and so forth.
Sure.
And the other third of that's actually quite gratifying, is we do a fair amount, probably about a third of our work is done to support the medical transplant industry.
Mm-hmm.
where we're taking medical teams around that are doing a different harvesting and transport of different organs for transplant, often very time critical types of operations,
Mm-hmm.
hearts and kidneys and lungs and livers. And it sounds a little macabre, but it's worthwhile. I mean, I'm sure that we've been instrumental in saving a few lives here and there. And it's really,
so cool.
it's really gratifying to think about that part of the mission and that part of the work that we do.
Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah, it's interesting. The reason why I say that is you gotta have an interesting view on people's thoughts about people, what they do for a living, from a incredible cause to identity and security. Some of the things we talked about. Though I know a lot of times you're spending the time in the cockpit. It is a really interesting occupation and thing. Talk a little bit about Graybeard. What's your heart with it? Talk a little bit about the assessment. How does some of the things we talk about kind of come together for you starting and emphasizing and putting your efforts here?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, the reason this whole effort was hatched and I decided it was kind of a cause I wanted to undertake is because there wasn't a lot of resources. And as I wasn't a lot of resources for these types of folks in this season that are transitioning or want to transition or are stuck in some way and want to transition to continue to participate and have impact and relevance with the skills that they've built over 20 or 30 years of being in the workplace. But they don't want to do it in the same way that they've done it. They don't want to operate in the same way. Some people want to just simply donate and contribute. Maybe they want to serve on a board or have a foundation. Other people might really want to make what it is that they have in terms of skills, knowledge, and experience into a fractional consulting type of concern. Other people want to do coaching, or maybe they just want to offer digital online education. Other people might just want to volunteer locally and be a mentor. There are a number of different ways, I believe, that people can use the knowledge, skills, and abilities to crystallize intelligence that we've talked about, you and I, quite a bit, and to bring that forward to the world and to the marketplace and to really bless and help other people. I think the sticking point is, if you've been doing what you've been doing well for the past 30 years, there are things that that you've forgotten 15 years ago. You don't. And I discovered this about myself as well. There's just things that I know that I'd already forgotten about. We don't know what we know. And in order, I think, to make all that skills, the skill set, the knowledge, the experience useful to us as we go forward in the next decade of our lives in having the impact that we want to have in the world and in the marketplace, got to extract that and get that out. And that's why I developed this process I call the Graybeard assessment. It's a fun, relaxed, hour-long AI voice-guided conversation that an individual that is really trying to figure out what their next step is, does not want to step back entirely, wants to continue using their God-given skills and abilities to have an impact and to be relevant, really get that out and into a format that is accessible and usable to them, so they can see what their options are that are actually available. So the result of this conversation is we have a process that we analyze the transcript from the conversation, and we produce a report for folks that gives them really a scope of possible options or alternatives that they could possibly think about based on what they've been doing and what their interests are. We also produce what we call a brand voice. So if you've been in the medical field, medical administrator field, and administration field for the past 30 years, and you want to step back and do something, it will give you a sense of all the options that are available to you and give you a sense of how you might best show up in the marketplace in terms of your brand voice, how you might show up to people in a way that's really effective and engaging. So I've had a bunch of beta testers that have gone through this with really good results, and we've refined and updated the software and the process to the point where I think it's really a valuable tool for anybody that's at a crossroads or at a turning point and wants to figure out what's next for them. That's the Graybeard assessment, and that's at graybeardassessment.com, by the way. If anybody's listening and wants to go to that, it's live and available to you. Yeah. So one of the things that I really like to emphasize, and I've really thought through quite deeply on, is this whole emerging world of AI and how it's going to impact us moving forward. I think it can be both a blessing and a curse. And let me explain why really quick. Especially as we go through and we are at this stage, it's really in the Western world as professionals, oftentimes we're fairly financially stable and we are presented with all of these different options of what we can the options are plentiful in terms of what you can go do next. And what I really think AI is particularly beneficial for us and helpful for us to use right now is sorting through those options in the way that I just described with a Graybeard assessment. And then secondly, once you kind of pick a path and figure out what exactly it is you want to do next, leveraging AI to get all of the different pieces and infrastructure and processes and SOPs and templates and anything else that you require to support your work moving forward is therefore, and I'm just deeply into that whole infrastructure world and developing all of those types of things. And I look forward to bringing all of those capabilities to the Graybeard community and to whoever wants to join me in kind of charting that path forward in that manner. I'm going to be here to support you I believe that all of us in the second part of our swan song or our second career, our late career, whatever that happens to be, I believe that we're all called to do something and to do something significant and impactful to help the world and to participate in the marketplace. And we're all called to, I believe, bless other people and love God, not in that order. The other, in love God and bless and contribute and serve other people. So with all that said, that's kind of all of the underlying thoughts between the Graybeard project and how AI plays into it. It's changing so quickly, but one foot in front of the other. So thanks, John, for your time. I really appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Two things. One is it's all going to turn out okay. Ultimately, it will all be okay. When you're in the middle of a turmoil or a horrible situation, whether it's your own creation or somebody else, the world is thrusted upon you. Ultimately, everything's going to be okay. The second thing I would say is to be willing to take more calculated risks than you feel comfortable with. Some people call it stepping outside of your comfort zone. I think really taking calculated risks, because that's where the opportunities really lie, and the growth and the character development and the opportunities, whatever that looks like to you, the opportunities present themselves when you're in an area that you're uncomfortable and you've taken a risk. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, John. God bless. And we'll be in touch. Okay.